2. All right, folks, we're getting set up. We'll be live in just a minute. We're going to do a live edition of our Eat Sleep Code podcast. I've got John Bristowe joining me here momentarily. Let's get him patched through.
Fiddling with my microphone.
Yeah. Sorry for the blank screen and stuff for a few minutes there. All right, there's John. All right, got you on screen, buddy. Let me get you centered in. So, Mr. Sam Basu, you know Sam. He, you still there, John? Oh, shoot. Lost John already. We'll get him patched in.
Sorry.
We'll get him patched in. No worries.
Sorry.
Do
You know that moment when you hit and you actually have the wrong program in front focus? You're like, oh.
Yeah, I definitely know the feeling. Let me squash the background music. And now that we've gotten you in without technical difficulties, and I'm like super zoomed in on my face here. So our cameras are all out of sorts today.
All good.
Yeah, nobody's here to see our faces anyway. Right, John?
Right. Certainly not.
Like, speak for yourself, buddy.
Dude, it's 5:30, 5:12 in the morning. So
oh man,
looking as good as I can get.
I bet we are having double sound going out too. I think that should fix it. I don't know if chat room's yelling at me. Yep, there was an echo. Sorry about the echo. Hopefully that fixed the echo. We fixed the echo. If we did, let us know.
Echo?
Yeah. So OBS is a tricky beast, and there are many moving pieces to it. And one of the things it likes to do is it brings in a sound input for Skype, and then also plays through my desktop, so people will hear you twice if I don't mute one of the two. Let's see here. I've got, is that one your, yep, there's your picture. So we're just figuring out how to get the images to like come up in the right spot every time. So that should hold for now. So we're good there. Let me zoom out of my face. Like, people are getting like the Mike Myers like super zoom on my forehead right now.
I think you're all right.
They're checking out my homemade haircut that I performed on myself the other day.
Yeah, I'm going with the quarantine cut soon. I'm getting a little bit long, so I might have to break out the little buzz trimmers. So
I'm good if I'm zoomed out about 2 levels, then you can't see all the mistakes. But I don't know if I need to be zooming in so close on my face. All right, John. So we've got. Do you have any topics to send my way?
I've got a few. I'm going to go ahead and put those in the Trello board right now.
Cool. I've got a few of them up. I got one on the screen we can talk about while we get the others queued up.
Sure.
First, though, let's do the official hello introduction. So, ready?
Yes.
Hello and welcome to Eat Sleep Code, the official Telerik podcast. I'm your host, Ed Charbeneau, with my co-host, John Bristowe.
Hi.
How you doing, John?
Oh, well, doing well.
Doing well. Good deal. We are live on Twitch, so we can take Q&A as we talk about the latest and greatest things in technology.
Fantastic.
Hopefully we can keep things pretty topical. I've got some fun stuff. Let's start with something fun while you queue up some more topics for us.
Sounds good. Yep.
I'll drop you a line in Skype as well, John, so you could see what exactly I've got up on the screen here, unless you're monitoring on Twitch. I don't know which way you prefer, but that first link, and I'll drop it in the chat room too if you want to check it out. It's actually just a tweet, but I thought this was really cool. So somebody took a Flick's smart button or Flick Fi. I don't know. It's all concatenated together. Let's see. Flick Shortcut Labs smart button. So it's basically a button that connects to your Wi-Fi and has like just an on-off state.
Right.
and they hacked it together with some of those little like LED rope lights. So when they're doing
Gotcha.
something like we are, mom and dad are working and doing a podcast or having office time, you just
Mm.
press the little remote controlled button at your desk, and the rope lights around your door turn from red to green or green to
Nice.
red. So
Yeah, I
I
know
thought that
Troy
was
Hunt did this recently with his son. They programmed an Alexa to change the color of his bookshelf, his son's bookshelves, excuse me, uh, for various colors.
nice.
Hmm.
One thing I've seen like last week seemed to be like a Twitter feed full of these hacks to do basically the same thing.
Sure.
The reason I grabbed this one and highlighted it is first of all, this button thing is something I had never seen before. And it is like the simplest implementation of this I've seen. So I've seen people like do Raspberry Pis and, like you said, Alexa and other IoT devices. And
Yep.
this one in particular just seems so low overhead. Like barrier to entry is very low on this one. You don't have to like format a Raspberry Pi and like
Hmm.
program it and all that stuff. I
So
thought
does the Flick support more than just one click? Can you do like a double click or something?
it looks
I'm
like they
just
have
curious.
multiple buttons that they have. This is actually the first time I've
Okay.
really checked them out in detail, but I thought it was pretty slick. I mean,
Hmm.
it's basically a
The
hub,
mega
I
kit.
guess, and you
Love
can,
that, the mega kit.
yeah, in case you want to put buttons on everything in the house. It's
Oh
your best
God.
value, of course, at
Sure, of course.
$399 US
So the
dollars.
hub they have is, I guess, just the receiver for all the different buttons.
Mm-hmm.
I wonder how it's implemented. I'm wondering if they use Bluetooth or Wi-Fi. I'm not really sure.
That's a good question.
Not super important. I'm just curious. That's all.
No,
Because you
no,
see
this
these
is
devices from time to time. The way that these typically work is if you get like a security cam system or you get one of these things, they typically it's kind of frustrating sometimes. They don't work with your existing Wi-Fi. They insist on having their own,
yeah,
or if they're Bluetooth enabled, then they're too far away, right? Because Bluetooth is pretty limited. So in terms of its distance, so it'll be interesting.
it is
Yeah,
long
use the Bluetooth.
range Bluetooth 5.0.
Yeah, there you
Um,
go.
So I've never checked out anything that's quote Bluetooth 5.0, so I don't know what the range is like. I know like what you're saying though. I had a thermometer for like my grill,
Mm,
and it was a cheap one anyway. I mean, it's not like worth getting upset over, but I mean, you walk like from the grill to 5 feet away in the kitchen, and it would disconnect. So
right.
if you're close enough to use the app, you're close enough to read the thermometer's like digital output anyway. So the thing was absolutely pointless to have any kind of Bluetooth connectivity. But
Mm.
this was an old, $20 device I bought like on the clearance rack at the local
Oh, so you
grocery
have one?
store. No, I was talking about a thermometer, like
Oh,
a
sorry.
heat thermometer for the grill.
Yep. Yeah. Yeah.
So I mean that was a long time ago, and it was generic is all get out. So I don't know what the Bluetooth 5.0 range is, but this thing looked pretty cool. And I'm assuming that a lot of these devices, like you're talking about security cameras and whatnot, probably
Right.
don't connect to your piggyback off your existing infrastructure because of security.
Yeah, that's true. It's well, for that reason as well. But yeah, I don't know why their insistence of using their own devices and networks and such. Maybe for simplicity purposes, right? They're just plug and play. Excuse me.
Yeah,
Interesting.
yeah. So that's something neat to check out. Little free advertising for Flick there.
Hmm.
Never heard, like I said, never heard of them till I saw the tweet, but I thought that was a cool little hack to get your it's kind of like your recording sign lighting up, letting your family know you're on the air, whether it's
Yeah, I
a
like it.
Skype meeting or Teams or whatever the cool thing is these days.
Yeah, I
I,
like it a lot.
I think I've got an overabundance of chat programs that
Hmm.
have entered my life in the last month. I don't know about you, but we've got too many going on.
Yeah, I tend to just not pay attention. I'll eliminate distraction, not add to them.
Well, one person at work likes, Slack, and then the next one wants to do Teams, and then somebody sends you an email with a Skype meeting in it, and before you know it, you've got to answer a question on a Discord board, and I could do this all day,
That's right.
Like, there's just so many services out there. Getting your organization consolidated on one is probably doable, but then you have to, all the outside communications you do, everybody's got something different. Then there's Zoom, and like the kids are using that for school, and now I'm a Zoom tech support person here at the house.
What's your opinion of Zoom? Because obviously there's a bit of a meme going around that, various companies like Tesla, and I think I read that Google recently said that they're not going to be using it for security reasons. What's your opinion on that?
So I'm not like well educated on what the real problem is with it, but from what I've kind of gleaned from articles on the interwebs is that it wasn't really built for mass consumption, like say like Teams or something like that is. And when you create a Zoom meeting, the ID is actually like a query string that is not so random. So you can kind of like hack it just by changing some of the letters and numbers in it and just bounce into people's meetings and stuff. Yeah. So yeah, that could be really bad if somebody eavesdrops on a meeting that's got sensitive information in it. But I don't know if that's still an ongoing problem. Don't take it from me. I would research.
I don't know either. I was just curious if you knew.
That is what I have heard, but that doesn't mean there's a grain of truth to it. I know there was articles and stuff circulating. Maybe we should do a little research and we'll talk about it next week so we don't give people FUD about Zoom. I know the schools are using it though, so the kids are on it every single day, and they haven't had any problems with it. So we, wouldn't want people going in there and like harassing kids or anything like that.
Oh, fair enough. Yeah.
So hopefully it's been good for them so far. So good. This next one came up on my my Twitch show last week or two ago, so I thought this was a pretty cool topic. And again, John, are you following on?
Yeah, I am. I'm looking at it right now.
Okay, cool.
Is this a classic UX thing?
Yeah. So this one is the title of...
Before you start, it's either really, really good or it's really, really bad. That's my guess.
Well, anytime you think a problem is simple, you've already failed at step one, and that's assuming that the problem's simple. And none of these things are ever easy. But this one is why the UK government, it says actually gov.uk, design system team changed the input type for numbers. Okay. And this one goes on about the input HTML tag. And when you set the attribute to type numbers, and you think like when you set something to numbers, it's pretty straightforward, and that text box or that input box is only going to take in numbers. Right. And it turns out that it does a lot more than that, and it can cause a lot of problems.
I would imagine it would. What did they change it to?
So text. They've got, let's see, this is the representation on Android, and it looks like they started with that. So
yeah, they changed it to text. It's right there. It says right there on your screen.
So they moved away from input number to input text with input mode numeric, and then assigned a pattern. So the pattern is basically a regex pattern of 0 through 9. And I can imagine there's probably other characters, depending on your scenario, that you might want in there.
Now, one thing I'll say is that the UK government, gov.uk, they have a good track record of providing really good docs and really good implementations. So there may be a very good reason for them doing this. Now, I suspect, without even reading this, I suspect it might have to do with things such as accessibility or older browsers or a certain type of user agents that are unsupported if it's numeric in nature, meaning type equals number versus type equals text. I'm just speculating here.
Yeah, so some of the accessibility issues they found where it doesn't dictate correctly or at all by screen readers. And then there are issues with the unlabeled element, the spin buttons that may or may not appear with it. And then something about when you're tabbing, there's issues there.
Yeah.
Something to do with incremental numbers also.
Yep.
And they have all of these different things that they cite for all of these different scenarios, entering credit cards. And then there's like things that are Safari specific. There are, I think this one that goes into letters is what I was having an issue with. So I wonder if I could find a easy way to do a demo of that. Let's see if
I got you. I mean, like these sorts of these are sorts of like ways of mitigating problems that can occur on different user agents. These are hacks, basically. You're trying to get around the inconsistency around the standard spec stuff that the HTML specification denotes, and it's basically a problem of the user agent. They all have these sort of micro edge cases that they don't agree on what the right sort of behavior should be. It's really unfortunate.
Yeah, there's an issue that I found, and I think they were getting at it there, where you set the type to numeric.
Yep.
And you expect that thing will only let you do numeric, only numbers. And what happens? Let's see if this works. So
I think it has to be type equals text, and then numeric is the. I think it's the input type.
Yeah.
Not that type.
Well,
that type.
We won't troubleshoot here. But when you set the value, we'll go back to the article and cite that instead.
Sure.
When we set input type to number, that's what I did. I put numeric. It's number. When you say type equals number, you can bang on the keyboard and you'll notice that some letters work, and you don't expect that, and it says it right here.
Right.
The letter E.
Yeah. Right, for exponent. That's right.
Right. The letter E works for exponent. So then the problem is there's no like intelligence around that. So it's
Understood.
just allows the letter E through.
I agree. It's tough because if you think about it, like let's say I'm not the government. Let's say that I'm a scientist and I've created a website for whatever. And I need to have an input that requires, maybe I'm doing astronomical calculations for planet orbits, and I need to have, these insanely large numbers. Then you're going to have to support those types of numbers with the exponent value.
Yeah, but the problem with it is, like you would expect like the activity of typing an exponent to be like 1, 2, 3, then E, and then a value. There's no validation around this thing. So when you put input type as number, you can just smash random E's in there. They don't have to be in any kind of pattern before or after numbers or number of E's. It just allows straight up the E key to be pressed and input into that box. So
what this speaks to is basically the HTML spec is almost too simple here. I have sympathy or empathy for both the implementers of the spec as well as the spec writers themselves, because they're basically having to try and map the entire world of use cases on a very simple type description. So type equals number. What could that mean, right? And I think what matters here is, well, there's ways around this. Obviously, one of the ways around this is to create your own web components, or to use a component provider like Telerik,
Yeah.
or to try and get around this by, but that creates its own problems, obviously, in some cases where, especially for governments, where they're like, we have to support this on the original Xbox, and we have to support this on the Palm Pilot, and we have to support this on whatever archaic device you can name. So it's a challenge.
So the challenge is the web is too open.
Well, yeah. I mean, I can see all sides of this in some respects,
definitely.
because it's really tough, really tough. So I think that what they've done here is a reasonable compromise. That's my estimation.
Yeah, when it boils down to it, I think it's just make sure you do your homework. Something as simple as just the type on an input box. You might think is doing something, but you got to kind of do some either some reading or some testing to make sure that it's doing exactly what you think it's going to do, especially when you're dealing with the web. The web is kind of still Wild West. And I just thought this one was interesting because I was doing a little session online on Twitch, and I was working with a text box, a numeric text box, and I was like, hey, chat room, what do you think will happen if I type the letter E? And we were kind of hashing out like some of the different things that happen in text boxes. And somebody pointed me towards this article. I can't remember who it was on the show, but they were like, hey, you got to check this article out. And then somebody wrote all about it. So I thought that one was cool. Thought I'd share on the podcast.
Yeah, that's good. I like it. It's one of those sort of oops moments. So
it's going to be one of those things like, one of those little Unix errors that you stumble upon like once every 25 years or some random thing like that. It kind of falls into that category, I think. Maybe occurs a little bit more though. But here's another fun Twitter thing I came across.
I already know what this is. I love it. It's great.
So the Street Fighter Twitter account was like, hey, everybody that's in Zoom or virtual meetings, here's some cool backgrounds for you. So they went through the original Street Fighter games and published all of the backgrounds for the Street Fighter games. So you can drop these into your Teams, Microsoft Teams meetings.
Yeah, these are burned into my brain from when I was a kid.
All right, let's test you then. Whose stage is this?
This is Ryu.
All right.
And the next one is Dalsum. Oh. And then the next one is Dalsum. This one is I don't know, but I know that the next one is the guy who has the mask. What's his name?
Vega.
It's been a while since I played. Vega, thank you. It's been a while since I played.
This one is Balrog. Is that how you pronounce it?
Yeah.
This is the boxer.
Yeah.
And there's more, of course.
I think that came. Well, no, actually, that's true. That is true. Oh God, Street Fighter V. I've never played.
Yeah, I've never played this one either.
I gave up video games a long time ago.
Just giving up.
Goodness, what is that?
I don't know. So I guess there's probably a training map or something where it's trying to make like a holodeck setting. So there was more original ones in here if you dig through the thread. There we go. There's the Blanca.
Blanca. That's right. Yep. Even the music is burned into my brain.
Oh, I know. Isn't that weird? You look at the picture and you can start hearing it.
All right, so that is the Russian dude. That's the guy who does the big kick thing. I can't remember. It's Guile. That's Guile. Yeah. And then that one is who is
that's your boss fight right there.
Yeah, that's what's his name? Bison guy. And then the last. Oh no,
this
the Tiger Upper dude.
The pre-boss. Yep.
Yeah.
Actually, yeah, he was one of my favorite when they made him playable.
Yeah, that guy did a lot of damage.
Yeah,
so, awesome.
It's a fun set of backgrounds though. We'll throw those in chat too, so they can have fun with that. Hopefully, we'll see some of those at work next week. I love it, man. I need to check out that feature in Teams. I don't know if they allow custom backgrounds yet. They allow
They do.
backgrounds now, but I haven't seen
You
that
have
you
to
can
hack
upload.
it. You have to hack it a little bit, I
You
think,
have to
from what
hack
I
it.
read somewhere.
Okay.
Yeah, you have to put it in a certain location.
All right. So we'll have to have that on the next show. How to hack Teams
That's right.
to get in trouble with IT at work.
That's right. It's just a well-known location, sort of like a path that you put it in, and then you're good to go.
This is a little article here about front-end frameworks in 2020. So it's just saying basically that front-end frameworks are just getting better. I think this kind of goes back to several years ago where we were in a mode of JavaScript fatigue, right?
Right.
So fast forward 3, 4, 5 years, and we've got 3 pretty solid frameworks that are hitting their stride. So we've got React and React Native and NativeScript and Angular and all of those things are pretty standardized now, and the tool sets are starting to get good around them, and they're getting more featureful, and they're able to chunk things and make it so that these front-end frameworks load much quicker, and they're a lot smaller in size, and they're just basically saying it's the heyday of front-end frameworks now.
Well, they're saying here that the new hotness is the progressive delivery of features. So basically, just-in-time delivery of capability. So let's take an example. Let's say you're using something like Kendo UI. In this model here, you don't have to download the whole thing until you're ready to use it. So progressive delivery, I would imagine, in this context means basically, put the shell of the component available, and then when someone interacts with it, just in time load it, so that you're not tying up, ones and zeros on the network. You're, minimizing as much JavaScript compilation as possible on load, and defer it to the point where someone interacts with it. So that's my guess what progressive delivery means. They quote here, enables us to deliver feature-rich applications and still have them be fast. How do we deliver on that speed? By having features arrive, quote, just in time. So that's an interesting sort of approach to that same problem. Because obviously, as you know, when you hit a website for the first time, a lot of stuff happens. DOM has to be processed, a lot of JIT compilation of JavaScript, CSS has to be processed, the page layout has to occur, painting, etc., etc. And so the idea here, I guess, is basically for those components that are heavy, like, say, for example, a calendar component, and this is where you can do various tricks for this. You can load an image and then background load it, etc. But they're saying here that with React's concurrent mode, which is an awesome feature, basically it's they added it in 16 point, I want to say 5 or 7, somewhere around there. Basically, the idea is that you can take these components in React and then load them just in time utilizing concurrent mode. Yeah, I like it. I like this idea. And basically, it really does cut down on that performance bottleneck of time to first load, which is a major problem. And as you're aware, loading times is a major usage or usability index for a lot of people. If your page doesn't load in less than, say, 1.5 or 2 seconds, a lot of people find the experience unacceptable.
Yeah,
so
absolutely.
This is a good way to tackle this problem. Now, what will be interesting, and I think they address this in the article, it says, we hope to break up the other half of blocking time with contributions to Webpack to chunk their module initialization time. Massive problem there. Webpack is really good at breaking things up, but it's going to be tricky to see how they inject code, if the way they're doing this is what I'm guessing, how they inject code so that you have the minimal amount necessary to make things kind of work the way they want. But my guess is that it doesn't sound like a difficult, they just have to inject something in that process so that things can load just in time. I think it can work. Yep.
It's a very short article, so there's not enough technical details in here, but it's a good jumping off point to go read up more on this progressive delivery stuff, and it's definitely interesting. And I think we're positioned with a bunch of really productive frameworks lately. So we've got our choice of tools these days. So it's a pretty good little read.
I like it. I actually haven't heard this term before, progressive delivery. So this is new to me, but the way that it's described doesn't sound too hard. And I know that frameworks like React can certainly take advantage of it. This was when concurrent mode was added to React. This was something that a lot of people were talking about. And I can see this being a very, very positive thing.
So speaking of modern frameworks,
come on, don't be that way.
jQuery 3.50 is released. There's still, a lot of really good applications that are built on jQuery.
Oh, sure.
Just because the new hotness is, Angular and React and Blazor and those things doesn't mean that jQuery isn't widely used. This kind of goes along, like, I'll sidebar for a second. I saw a tweet the other day that said, so I heard server-side rendering is back again. And I was like, did that ever leave? Like, was that ever not a thing? Like,
no, it's always been a thing.
Majority of the web still runs like on WordPress and jQuery, as far as I know.
Yep. There's a lot of duct tape and glue involved in making the web work, and jQuery is definitely one of those bits that makes the web work for sure. So jQuery 3.5, obviously, jQuery's been on a slim fast diet for a bit. They've been kind of making it more lean and mean over the years, and definitely is one of those critical libraries that a lot of people use. And you can poo-poo it all you want, but it does provide that sort of nice spackle that fills in all the cracks between browser implementations. And just as coming full circle, just as much as there was a problem with the gov.uk site for numbers, jQuery solves similar types of problems, not in that exact sense, but in terms of differences between browsers. And so I liken it to the sort of spackle you put on a wall to fill in the cracks and little holes that kind of get into your wall there over time. So basically, not too much to really be said about this. Obviously a security fix regarding the HTML pre-filter, a couple of features and fixes that they've added, and obviously with every release of jQuery, they always do a lot of deprecations. But should be a minimal upgrade, and hopefully, isn't too much problem to integrate into your workflow.
Tell you what, one good reason to use jQuery is if you have a system that you are given that you did not create, and you have a web page, and you're able to run JavaScript against it, but you're not, say, the owner of the origination of that HTML.
Right.
You can do some really interesting stuff. I'll give you an example of that. So let's see if I can find this. Kendo UI icons. So actually, this is a true story. If we go to Kendo UI, in the documentation, you'll find, yes, I'll take the cookies. Free cookies. Who's going to turn down free cookies? So if you're listening at home, there's just a pop-up I had to accept here. We have these icons, right, for Kendo UI, and this is a JavaScript framework. It has many flavors, and we are using the same HTML and iconography for Blazor, right? So in the .NET world, I thought it'd be nice to have an API that would list out the icons for us. And instead of going in and like hand coding this API to figure out all of the icons that we have available, because there's over 140, I think, something like that. That would be a lot of coding to say, I have a method called redo that displays a redo icon, and so on for each icon, like having that API. So what I actually did is came into this page, and I don't have developer tools enabled here, but I right-clicked and did inspect element, dropped in a jQuery script, and basically found every icon on the documentation using jQuery, and then did a map function that output the C# code needed for the API, and generated on the fly an API right out of the documentation. So I basically used jQuery to translate an HTML page into C# code. And then I copied the C# code into Visual Studio, saved it, and that's shipping in the product now.
Lovely.
So, I mean, whatever works, right? It gets the job done. So don't knock.
When faced with a problem, developers do what God intended. We hack.
Yeah.
So, no problem with this.
I mean, it saved me countless hours of typing, just busy work code. So all it was is a select and a map and a template. And I built that in probably 10 minutes and saved myself several hours of coding. I
love it. You use the computer for what it was intended, is to amplify your intelligence, or in some cases to amplify your stupidity. So they're really good at doing that.
Or in my case, amplifying my laziness.
Yes, that's true. Awesome.
Yeah. So that was a fun little challenge. But without jQuery, I mean, it has purposes beyond building, interfaces. You can do a lot more stuff with it. It's got a good DOM traversal mechanic to it that I like, and it's even after a long time of not using it, it's still easy to pick up and run with. So yeah, don't knock it. All right, GitHub is free for teams. What does that mean, John? I didn't read this one.
This is just a sort of announcement that they pushed out earlier today. Basically, that they're making private repositories with unlimited collaborators available to all GitHub accounts. And in addition to that, they've reduced the price for the paid team plan from $9 per month to $4 per user per month. So, this is a nice feature because if you've ever wanted to use, as I say right here, if you've ever wanted to use GitHub for private development, you had to subscribe to the paid plans. But now you have access to it, basically, if you're wanting to use that. Teams is a nice feature. It gives you all kinds of capabilities, CI/CD, product management, code review, etc. And really, really nice feature now available for folks who want to use it.
Very nice.
So great news there.
Cool stuff. Some time ago, some folks were worried that Microsoft would get a hold of GitHub and do bad things with it. And I think a lot of that fear was unfounded. And I think people can probably agree that a lot of nice things have actually happened since then, this being one of them. And then if you live in a tech bubble, you may not have heard that GitHub now owns NPM. So by proxy, Microsoft owns NPM as well. So we're going to see what interesting things they do with that next.
Yeah, just on that note, I worked at Microsoft for about 6 years, and I think that historically, people hold on to that historical context around Microsoft, which is embrace, extend, extinguish. I think that meme has run its course. I find that most things that Microsoft takes on and does a good job of pursuing, they tend to do the right thing. And I think I would say Sasha is one of the main reasons for that. And the culture has changed. So I would say that for folks who are concerned about those things based on their biases and historical sort of thoughts around that, I think that there's definitely a context that was relevant back in the day. But these days, I don't see that to be the case at all. I think in most cases, if not all, certainly in the last, 15 to 10 years, it certainly has been nothing but improvement for cases like this where Microsoft has taken these things on. Now, that being said, there's obviously the edge cases that I'm willing to concede have occurred. But for all the things that Microsoft has put out, if you think about what's been put out, like code, TypeScript, in this instance here, GitHub, right? GitHub's a massive, massive acquisition. Yeah. LinkedIn, NPM, now NPM. They've provided structure and in some cases sanity, and in some cases just good engineering, practices and workflows and discipline that I think that, I think they provided nothing but goodness in a lot of cases.
Yeah.
Now, that's not to say that they lacked them or they didn't have them before, but I think this meme of Microsoft does bad things, I think that is in many cases misguided, misdirected, and furthermore, I would say you should look elsewhere for companies behaving badly before you start pointing fingers at Microsoft. And I say that with all due respect. There are a lot of instances where companies have done the wrong thing, and it hasn't been Microsoft. And if anything, Microsoft has done a phenomenal job, I think, in certainly the last decade, of improving those sorts of aspects of its culture and its history.
So who should
Sorry,
we point
I didn't mean
fingers
to get
at,
on
John? Who does
Well,
John Bristowe have on his list?
I'm not going to call anyone out. Certainly not right now. But I have my list of companies that, from time to time, and you wouldn't be able to, think too hard and too long to figure out who those are. I certainly have my list of companies that I think, could do a better job, or have certainly swayed away from their original sort of calling, if you will. I'm kind of showing my hand now by saying that, but yeah.
Yeah, I'm not going to call out any American telecom businesses right here on the show either, but pick your favorite.
Sure. I think the tendency is certainly to do the right thing. I mean, because I think the thing about developers is, certainly it's been my history, and I know it's probably been yours, is that developers can really tell pretty quickly, hey, this is not right. Hey, this smells, like, what I guess people would colloquially call BS. And I think for companies who want to operate well in this space, certainly if their customers are developers, they have to do the right thing. And I think for a long time, certainly back when my hair wasn't so gray, there was a lot. People weren't having their feet held to the fire, so to speak, as much.
Mm-hmm.
And so people got away with a lot more back in the day. And I think Microsoft certainly got away, I guess maybe getting away is not the right term, but it was just people weren't holding them accountable in some respects. I don't think that's the case anymore. Certainly not in the last decade, for sure. I mean, since the rise of social media, people are definitely holding people accountable. And I think if you look at Microsoft's track record over the last decade, it's been nothing but exemplary, I think. The contributions they've made, the resources they provided, they didn't have to write Visual Studio Code. They didn't have to, obviously they were compelled to do so for a variety of reasons, but no one said you have to create a text editor. Now, people lovingly suggested that they did so. They didn't have to, utilize, various technologies or implementations, to certain browsers, for example. But after a lot of push and shove, they decided to do so. They certainly didn't have to write a programming language that people love, like TypeScript, but they saw the deficiencies in the language that was being used, and they saw it as an opportunity to, provide some goodness around the language. And TypeScript now is phenomenally popular. So, I think this meme of Microsoft being evil, I think is done. I think we're done with this. So.
Yeah, I think one of the things you didn't mention that's really positive there too is their commitment to accessibility has been phenomenal, especially since Nadella has taken office. It's they've got all kinds of things that are being worked into their products. Like Xbox has that controller that's kind of like freeform inputs for accessibility needs. There's all sorts of stuff like that happening within the organization that's really cool to watch. So I'm going to say, speaking of, I know this happened a moment ago, but I said something about telecoms. This one is a conspiracy theory at its worst.
Oh God, don't get me started.
I had to throw this in at the last minute here. Geez, these pop-ups are just about as bad. I want to scroll. How come I can't scroll? Oh, this is like why people don't like the web. It's like pop-ups and videos and jeez, what is this, Forbes? Come on, Forbes, get your act together. No, but the headline is all we really need to know about. So the headline reads, and
so
please,
dumb. This is so dumb.
Can I stop this video or not? What is this doing? The headline reads, 5G networks and the coronavirus. Here are the latest conspiracy theories. So if you haven't heard this one yet, apparently there is a gaggle of people that believes that 5G is to blame for the coronavirus. Gasp. Like, come on.
5G doesn't even have enough. It doesn't have enough power to do anything really. I mean, yes, you require more towers. Yes, it provides more throughput. I'm not an engineer, but it doesn't even 4G itself. I mean, it's ridiculous. This is so ridiculous.
Like,
but I mean, I don't know. Yeah.
Let's start with conspiracy theory part A that says that 5G is actually implemented anywhere.
Yeah. Yeah.
Who has 5G? Seriously, they advertise it. And this is where I was kind of
actually, incidentally, we do here in the Gold Coast, Australia. There are a few towers, I think, that are lit up. Yeah,
not
but it's
globally available to where every country is seeing the impact of said effects as misinterpreted as coronavirus. So, that implementation is everywhere. So there's they're selling this stuff in the US, this 5G network propaganda. Like, you can go and just buy a 5G phone and use it anywhere. In reality, they've got like maybe a handful of towers in New York. And if you watch the ad carefully enough, they even say like limited availability in some major cities.
Extremely limited. Extremely limited.
And I mean, it's literally like, if anything, they have a test group of, cities with a very small region of coverage. And for somebody to mistake that with a global health scare, if you even want to call it that, a global health disaster, is just it's so ridiculous.
First of all, there's barely any phones on the market right now that support this. Secondly, the amount of infrastructure required to support 5G is enormous, because you're getting more throughput with the technology, which requires you to shorten the distance between towers. You have to put a lot of coverage. It's a nice thing to have, obviously, if you're within the vicinity of one of those towers. But as you rightly said, there's barely any towers available worldwide right now. Most of them are 4G, if not 3G. And, I think there's like 2 or 3 phones on the market today. Like one Android, I know a couple of Android phones that support it, but it's very limited. And I think the latest iPhone supports it. So, the thing is, these radios that they have in the mobile devices, I mean, I just shake my head at this, because it's not that complicated, really. I mean, they're just different radios, but the radios themselves are microscopic. I mean, if you really think that something that small is generating that much power inside a phone, like, you're giving a lot of credit to the battery manufacturers, to be honest, because it's amazing that this would be the amount of power to even get the sort of rates of what people are attributing to this. I won't go into the details, but the folks who are saying that these sorts of wireless technologies, like, for a long time, people thought that these things would give you cancer in your skull. I mean, the amount of power they're generating is so microscopic, and you're giving a lot of credit to the manufacturers that they can generate that much power. To be honest, I'm getting off on a rant here, but people know what I'm saying.
It's on cloud.
Well, it's just like, listen, yes, it's okay. To the layman, technology can certainly be a bit mysterious. I totally respect that. I understand that. And as I said on the last show, I've got family members who type Google into google.com. But, at the same time, I think that it's really hard to kind of explain this to people, but you have to try and go into physics and all that sort of stuff. But really, the amount of energy to mutate cells to generate cancer, the amount of power that's necessary to, let alone like do something that has never been heard of before, which is generating pandemic viruses. It's like, okay, so it's just interesting that people come up with these ideas. If anything, this shows the creativity of people's imaginations. So
that I'll give you. That one's absolutely true. When I heard that, I just first of all thought it was laughable that people thought 5G was a thing. Like those ads are really working, I guess. Where and again, I won't name the one of three telecoms that exist in this country, but they are like pushing really hard for these advertisements, and I'm like, yeah, those things don't exist here yet. Like they have 5 towers in Manhattan somewhere, and they're advertising it like it's available everywhere, even though the screen in fine print says it's not. But people are evidently believing it's a true thing, and then spinning it even further to make it into like a cause for health concern. So
speaking of coronavirus, what do you think of the announcement that Apple and Google kind of made, where they said they're going to work together to try and provide contact tracing for folks? What are your thoughts on that?
I haven't seen the announcement. All I know is the idea there was already implemented in China, basically. And the idea is you have your cell phone and you walk around and either check in through geofencing or QR code or whatever kind of input that you can make. That's what do you call it? Standardized. I think in China they use QR codes on pretty much every building that you enter and exit. And this kind of keeps track.
I put an article in the Trello board that kind of talks about this, but basically they're using Bluetooth and trying to. It's a similar sort of program that they had in Singapore. They have in Singapore, in China, and various other countries, basically, and it gives you a status based on where you've been in the last certain amount of time, who your contacts are, et cetera, and then will basically give you a likelihood, a classification of what's the potential of you becoming infected based on your recent movements. And so this was the article that Wired did. I know that Apple and Google are talking right now based on what I'm hearing in the news reports. Whether or not this will actually be used, whether or not it'll be effective, I don't know. It'll be interesting. So
yeah, I know in the US, like this whole privacy topic is just gonna debate till the end of days. So I don't know.
So the graphic they have there is interesting. So they say Alice and Bob don't know each other, but they have a 10-minute conversation. A few days later, Bob is positively diagnosed with COVID-19 and enters into the system via the Public Health Authority app. So basically, the idea here is that the devices communicate with each other, and then they basically know that you've been in close proximity to this person. So there is an element of this that I don't mind so much, because really you're not sharing like the details of the conversation. It's like it's that sort of metadata argument that you heard a lot about back when Snowden was talking a lot. It is a little bit of metadata-ish here. You're talking about proximity. Incidentally, this is the way that a lot of people will steal devices from cars. I read about this. They use these Bluetooth locators to see if you've left your phone in your car, for example. And they just go around parking lots. And incidentally, this is what I read, to try and figure out where devices may be. But this is an interesting sort of approach to this problem. To see whether or not this will actually, be useful or not will be anyone's guess.
Yeah. I think it'll still, even though it's got, some evidence that it's anonymized, people will still fight it here. They will fight it till the end. So we'll see what happens. Even in the face of like massive tragedy, people will fight this. I just have a gut feeling about it.
I suspect you're right.
Even if it's the right thing to do, people will still fight it for their quote privacy. But to play devil's advocate for a minute, this anonymized data idea has been debunked so many times, where people say that data is anonymized, yet you can go through and find things that allow you to kind of unwind that obfuscation, so to speak. They did a pretty good documentary on it with terms and conditions may apply, where they had anonymized data from Yahoo searches, I think it was.
Right.
And they went back and like found people specifically in the search data and like tracked them down to their house. Like one guy was searching the terms like how do I murder my wife, how to dispose of a body, you know, all these morbid like wife killing type of phrases. So they went to his house, knocked on his door, and turns out he was a writer for CSI.
Oh.
And his wife was in the background. She's like, I'm fine. I'm all good. I'm back here. I'm not dead.
Yeah.
So their point was proven. I mean, no, but I think this type of thing is going to be a necessity. Just my early opinion of the current situation. So it might be time to fight the fight to get something like that implemented. We'll have to see how this turns out. So
another thing that I just another thing I just came across was John Papa's article on GitHub's new CLI GH. So John Papa wrote a little bit of a sort of 101 on the new CLI that GitHub has provided. So classically, you utilize Git, which is tried and true. Everyone knows it, loves it, maybe. And so what GH now is basically an ability to utilize that same approach, but in more of a GitHub style. So things like exposing issues, being able to create repos, being able to clone repos, fork repos, etc., create pull requests. And the nice thing here is that it's put in that same taxonomy or nomenclature, if you will, that you'll typically find on GitHub. So it's a nice sort of summary of the new CLI. I imagine they've got this posted up on NPM, but I just saw this here, and I'm going to have to check this out. Yeah,
we'll have to put together a list of links. I get those up online on our SoundCloud page. I need to find another way to post those so we can find them easier from the Code It live stream page.
Right.
But we do keep all these links and archive them, so we'll find a way to publish those out so everybody can find stuff a little bit easier.
So if you're interested, you guys can go to cli.github.com, and this provides a sort of one-stop shop of finding out what it's all about, and this looks pretty good. I like it. Oh, it's installed via Brew. There you go.
And then we've got some friends in the chat as well. TJ Vansel from Progress is in the chat room. Michael Crump is here.
Hey.
Lots of good friends have joined us to hear us rant and rave about the webs, the interwebs, and various technologies.
That's awesome. Hey guys, how's it going?
It's been great to have everybody here. Seen a couple new followers hit the channel as well. So thank you if you just followed the Code It Live channel. We've got quite a few actually. So sorry I didn't announce everybody. I think I've got it turned off temporarily in this version of my OBS stream here. But everybody that followed, thank you very much. Appreciate that. You'll get notified now when we go live on Code It Live. Whether it's a podcast show or one of my coworkers like TJ or Sam is doing some live coding, and Alyssa as well. The four of us, and we all do shows throughout the week on this channel. So thank you very much. So following after finding out about ngconf. Oh, very nice. Thank you. The TI Grr. I am so terrible at trying to pronounce Twitch names. But yeah. So appreciate all of you following, and we'll do more of these. We're going to try to hit it up every other week here with the podcast. And we've got live shows on coding and all sorts of fun stuff happening. So you can find us here on Twitch, or you can find us on Twitter. Both John and I go by our names on Twitter as well. We'll pop those in the chat room for folks too. But it's John Bristowe and Ed Charbeneau, and John, do you have any parting words, my friend?
Well, in this day and age, it's really important to stay connected with folks. I think that's why Twitch offers a, I would say, essential service. Call up loved ones, call up friends, stay connected. Obviously, in this day and age where, I think for a lot of developers, they're kind of like, dude, nothing's changed. I'm still stuck in front of my computer, right? But I think it's important that people reach out and, understand that it's important to, even if not for yourself, but for others, wash your hands, stay safe, etc., etc. It's may you live in interesting times, as they say, and these are certainly the most interesting of times right now. But we're gonna get through this, and this is a good time to take up a hobby, maybe gardening, or if you're in an apartment, learn a new programming language, or get some exercise. I don't know. This if not now, when, right? So this is the best time to do something like that, I think. So yeah, look at this as an opportunity and less of a crisis.
Sounds good, John. Appreciate you coming and joining me for another fun podcast.
Cheers.
We'll have to do this again, not next week, but the following week. Depends on how things go. We may up it to another, like once a week or something like that. But for now, it's every other week. So make sure you all visit back and watch our other live shows that we do throughout the week. So take care, John. Stay safe,
all
and listeners as well. Do the right thing. Like John said, wash your hands. I got the evil eye for that today. I reminded my wife to wash her hands. She just like vaporized me instantly to dust.
Good hygiene. Good hygiene.
So we'll see. All right, man. Take care. It was fun.
See you guys.